The Silent City. The air tasted like metal as Mina spotted the shimmering lake ahead. Her knuckles whitened against Paula's scales, the dragon's heartbeat thrumming through her palms like a war drum. 3 days of flying had left her thighs raw, her emerald jacket frayed at the sleeves, but time was a luxury the people of Hion couldn't afford, if they were still people at all. Almost there, pal, she whispered, the words stolen by the wind. Paula's wings cut through clouds with surgical precision, each stroke propelling them closer to the coordinates embedded in the distress beacon. Mina had been 13 when the signal had pierced the tranquility of her mountain sanctuary, waking her from dreams of normalcy that had never been hers to claim. Now at 15, with a dragon that shouldn't exist and a mission that couldn't fail, the weight of responsibility bent her narrow shoulders. Remember, she reminded herself. Straight in, find survivors, eliminate the threat, straight out. The mantra had been drilled into her by Professor Wexler, whose weathered face haunted her brief moments of sleep. Don't be a hero. Heroes get memorials. Survivors get to eat breakfast. The valley below had once been Hion's crown jewel, a technological paradise carved into pristine wilderness. From this height, its gleaming towers still pierced the landscape like silver needles. But something was wrong. The central plaza, normally pulsing with holographic advertisements and the perpetual motion of commerce, lay still. The automated traffic system, designed to create perfect harmony of ground and air vehicles, showed no signs of activity. What unsettled Mina most wasn't what she saw, but what she didn't hear. The constant background hum of Hion's 8 million people, living, breathing, arguing, loving, had been replaced by a silence so complete it felt manufactured. She tapped the communication device on her wrist, expecting the usual cascade of channels and voices. Static answered her. "This is exactly why I didn't want to come," she muttered, though they both knew that was a lie. Since discovering Paula's egg 6 years ago, a luminescent oval nestled in the radioactive ruins of what had once been Seattle, Mina had been preparing for something. The how and why of a living dragon in the 23rd century remained a mystery that kept xenobiologists awake at night, but Mina's connection to the creature transcended scientific inquiry. They were linked in ways that defied conventional understanding, their very atoms seemingly entangled. Paula banked left, his massive body responding to a thought rather than a command. His alabaster scales caught the midday sun, transforming him into a living beacon. If anything hostile remained in Hion, subtlety had just become impossible. "We need to find somewhere to land," Mina said, scanning the familiar landscape transformed by abandonment. "The old stadium might work." The dragon snorted, a plume of steam rising from his nostrils. In their 6 years together, Mina had never fully deciphered Paula's expressions, but this one seemed clear enough: skepticism. "Fine, you pick," she conceded. Paula dipped toward a clearing beside what had once been Hion's central reservoir, a man-made lake that supplied the city's reclamation systems. As they descended, Mina's enhanced vision captured details that sent ice through her veins. The water's surface was wrong. Not the crystalline blue engineered by Hion's founders, but a murky gray that pulsed with unnatural rhythm. Worse, there were shapes in the water. Hundreds of them. Thousands. "Pull up," she shouted, but Paula had already seen them. His massive wings strained against gravity as they ascended with stomach-lurching speed. From their new vantage point, Mina activated her binoculars. The ancient tech adjusted automatically to compensate for their movement. What she saw couldn't be processed by her rational mind. In and around the reservoir, partially submerged in the cloudy water, stood beings that defied categorization. Their skin ranged from cobalt blue to vibrant purple, with anatomical structures that suggested both terrestrial and utterly alien origins. Some had elongated craniums that caught the light like polished gemstones. Others possessed multiple appendages that moved with unsettling coordination. "What happened to them?" she whispered, the question directed at no one. Most disturbing was their stillness. The creatures, she couldn't bring herself to call them people, stood in the water as if awaiting instructions, their faces, if they could be called that, turned skyward. Watching. Waiting. Mina's hand moved instinctively to the pendant around her neck, a flat circular device no larger than a coin, its surface etched with symbols no linguist had ever deciphered. Professor Wexler had given it to her the day she'd emerged from the quarantine chamber with Paula, the dragon no larger than a house cat curled against her chest. "This will protect you," Wexler had said, his voice cracking with emotion that seemed out of character for the stoic scientist. "And when the time comes, it will protect all of us." Now, hovering above what should have been 8 million human lives but instead appeared to be an alien congregation, Mina wondered if that time had come. The educator's truth. "We need a closer look," Mina decided, guiding Paula toward the outskirts of the city where the buildings thinned and potential threats might be more easily managed. They landed in what had once been a recreational park, the synthetic grass now overgrown in patches as if the maintenance systems had been gradually failing rather than suddenly deactivated. Paula's massive claws left indentations in the soft ground as he folded his wings against his body, instantly transforming from aerial predator to sentinel. Mina slid from his back, her boots connecting with solid ground for the first time in days. Her legs protested, muscles trembling as they adjusted to bearing her weight. The air here tasted different, not just the metallic tang she'd noted from above, but something underneath it. Something organic and unfamiliar. "Stay close," she told Paula, though the instruction was unnecessary. The dragon moved with her as if they shared a nervous system, his massive head swiveling to track potential threats, nostrils flaring as he processed the alien scents. The park connected to a residential district that should have been teeming with life. Hion's housing modules, stackable, customizable living spaces that citizens modified to reflect their status and personality, stood in eerie abandonment. Doors hung open. Personal transport sat idle in their charging stations. A child's hovering toy buzzed in aimless circles, its battery nearly depleted. "Hello," Mina called, instantly regretting the decision as her voice echoed through the empty streets. "Anyone here?" Paula growled, a low vibration that she felt rather than heard. His amber eyes fixed on something in the distance, a flicker of movement between buildings. "I saw it," she whispered, unslinging the pulse rifle from her back. The weapon, designed to incapacitate rather than kill, hummed to life in her hands. "Let's check it out." They moved through the streets with practiced coordination, Mina taking point, Paula covering their flanks, both scanning vertical spaces where threats might lurk. The movement they'd spotted led them to a commercial district where food dispensaries and entertainment venues sat in suspended animation. A promotional hologram flickered in front of a cinema, the same 5 seconds of an action sequence repeating on loop, the sound distorted beyond recognition. "There," Mina hissed, dropping into a crouch behind an abandoned transport. A figure moved between buildings with unnatural grace. Not human, that much was immediately clear from its proportions and the fluid way it navigated the space. Its skin gleamed a deep indigo in the afternoon sun, and what should have been a head appeared to be an elongated oval with no discernible facial features. "What the hell is that?" Mina whispered, adjusting her rifle settings. Before she could take aim, the creature stopped. It rotated what she assumed was its head, and though she could detect no eyes, she felt observed. Analyzed. Known. Then it spoke. "Mina Nakamura. Dragon Bond. Last graduate of Program Sentinel." The voice emerged not from the creature but seemed to materialize in the air around them, as if the atmosphere itself had been co-opted as a medium of communication. "Your arrival was anticipated. Your purpose is known." Paula's muscles tensed beneath his scales, ready to launch them both to safety. Mina placed a restraining hand on his flank. "Who are you?" she demanded, rising from her cover but keeping the rifle trained on the being. "What have you done with the people of Hion?" The creature made a motion that might have been the equivalent of a shrug. "I am Educator Thren, previously designated Dr. Thomas Reeves, Xenobiological Studies, Hion Central University." The being took a step forward, its movements too smooth to be mechanical but too precise to be natural. "The people of Hion have not been done with. They have been elevated." Mina's grip tightened on her weapon. "Dr. Reeves?" She remembered the name from Professor Wexler's briefings, a respected scientist who had vanished during the first wave of disappearances. You're human. Or you were. Human is a transitional state, Educator Thren replied. We discovered this truth through our research into the artifacts your species has been systematically destroying. The pendant you wear, for instance, it is one of the last intact specimens. Mina's free hand flew to her throat, fingers closing around the ancient device. How do you know about this? Because we have been waiting for you, Mina Nakamura. The dragon bond was not an accident. It was preparation. The being gestured toward Paula, who remained coiled and ready to strike. Your companion is not merely a creature of genetic anomaly. He is a guardian, awakened by necessity. Guardian of what? Of the choice that must be made. Educator Thren's form seemed to shimmer, becoming more translucent. The transformation that claimed Hion is spreading. In 72 hours, it will reach the last human settlements. Your species stands at a crossroads, evolve or perish. And if we refuse your elevation, then you will join the resistance that even now gathers in the underground chambers of this city. Humans who cling to their primitive forms, hiding in the dark while their world transforms above them. The being paused. They are dying, Mina. Slowly. Painfully. The old flesh cannot survive in the new world we are creating. Mina felt Paula's tension through their bond, sensed his readiness to act. But something in the educator's words rang with a terrible sincerity. Show me, she said. Show me these survivors. The last humans. Educator Thren led them through the abandoned streets to what had once been Hion's central library, a massive structure built into the bedrock itself. The building's entrance had been sealed with some kind of organic resin that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. The resistance sealed themselves in 3 days ago, Thren explained, its voice carrying a note that might have been sadness. They refuse communion with the collective consciousness. They prefer to die as individuals rather than live as part of something greater. Mina studied the sealed entrance, noting the military-grade blast marks around the edges. They didn't go quietly. No. Dr. Sarah Chen, their leader, was quite vocal about her objections to evolution. Thren touched the organic seal, and it began to dissolve with a soft hissing sound. She waits for you below. The stairwell beyond was dark, illuminated only by emergency lighting that flickered with failing power. Mina activated her shoulder lamp, its beam cutting through shadows that seemed almost alive. Paula had to fold his wings tightly to navigate the narrow passage, his scales scraping against stone walls never designed for dragons. They descended for what felt like hours, moving deeper into the mountain's heart. The air grew thick and stale, carrying the scent of unwashed bodies and recycled atmosphere. Finally, they reached a reinforced door marked with radiation warnings and biohazard symbols. Beyond this point, we cannot follow, Thren said, its form beginning to fade. The humans have created defenses. Crude, but effective against our kind. We will wait for your return. Mina approached the door and knocked, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The pattern Professor Wexler had taught her for emergency contacts. After a moment, she heard the whir of mechanical locks disengaging. The door opened to reveal a young woman in a tattered lab coat, her face gaunt with exhaustion and stress. Mina Nakamura, she said, not a question but a statement of desperate hope. You actually came. Dr. Chen. Mina stepped through the doorway, Paula following with obvious reluctance. The space beyond was a makeshift command center, filled with jury-rigged equipment and the soft murmur of human voices. Professor Wexler sent me. Wexler's dead, Chen said bluntly, sealing the door behind them. Transformed 2 weeks ago. We watched it happen on the comm feeds. She gestured to a bank of monitors showing various locations throughout the city, all occupied by the blue-skinned beings. He was one of the last to hold out. The command center housed perhaps 50 people, men, women, and children huddled around workstations and sleeping areas carved from the library's lower levels. They looked up as Mina entered, their faces showing a mixture of awe and desperate hope at the sight of her and Paula. "A real dragon," whispered a small girl, her eyes wide with wonder despite the circumstances. "How long can you hold out down here?" Mina asked Chen, studying the improvised life support systems. "Maybe 2 more days. The air recyclers are failing, and we're running low on food. The transformed ones, they don't seem to need to eat, or sleep, or do anything human anymore." Chen led her to a workstation covered with research data. "But we've learned something important. The transformation isn't random. It's keyed to specific genetic markers that appeared in the human genome about 300 years ago. Around the time the first artifacts were discovered," Mina realized. "Exactly. Whatever created your pendant and the other artifacts, they've been preparing humanity for this moment for centuries. Slowly altering our genetic code, making us compatible with whatever they are." Mina pulled out her pendant, watching as its etchings began to glow in the presence of so many humans. "But not everyone carries the markers. About 60% of the population. The rest of us are obsolete." Chen's voice carried bitter acceptance. "The transformed ones call it evolution, but it's really just replacement. They're not human anymore, Mina. There's something else wearing human memories." A younger man approached from across the chamber, his clothes marked with the distinctive symbols of Hion's tech sector. "Dr. Chen, the scanners are picking up massive energy buildups throughout the city. Whatever they're planning, it's accelerating." Chen nodded grimly. "Show her." He led them to a wall of monitors displaying energy readouts from across Hion. The patterns were unmistakable, some kind of massive coordinated event was building toward a climax. "They're synchronizing," Mina breathed, recognizing the harmonic patterns from her studies of the artifacts. "This isn't just about Hion. They're turning the entire city into some kind of transmission array. To spread the transformation globally," Chen confirmed. "In approximately 18 hours, they'll have enough power to broadcast the transformation signal worldwide. Every human with the genetic markers will undergo the change simultaneously." Mina felt Paula's agitation through their bond. The dragon sensed something she couldn't, a building tension in the very air around them. "There has to be a way to stop it," she said, though even as she spoke, the enormity of the challenge seemed impossible. Chen smiled sadly. "There might be. But it would require someone bonded to one of the guardian creatures, someone carrying an intact control artifact, to reach the central transmitter and manually overload the system." She looked pointedly at Mina's pendant. "Someone exactly like you." "It's suicide," the technician protested. "The transmitter is in the reservoir, surrounded by thousands of the transformed. Even with a dragon, you'd never make it." Mina studied the energy readings, her mind racing through possibilities. What if I didn't have to fight my way through them? What if there was another way? She turned to Chen, a desperate plan forming in her mind. "How long would it take to modify my pendant? To turn it from a protective device into something more aggressive?" The guardian's choice. Dr. Chen worked through the night, her hands steady despite the exhaustion that shadowed her eyes. The pendant lay open on the workbench, its ancient circuitry exposed to the harsh light of her examination lamps. Around them, the surviving humans maintained their desperate vigil, monitoring the transformed beings above while their life support systems gradually failed. "It's not just technology," Chen murmured, adjusting a microscopic component with surgical precision. "There's something biological integrated into the matrix. Living circuits that respond to neural patterns." She glanced up at Mina. "Your bond with the dragon, it's changed you on a cellular level. The pendant recognizes you as something more than human." Mina felt Paula's presence at the edge of her consciousness, the dragon resting in the larger chamber but alert to every fluctuation in her emotional state. More than human, or less. Different. Evolution doesn't always mean improvement, sometimes it means specialization. Chen sealed the pendant's housing and handed it back to Mina. I've amplified the harmonic resonance frequency and inverted the field polarity. Instead of protecting you from the transformation signal, it should disrupt it completely. But there's always a but. The power draw will be enormous. It might kill you. And even if it works, even if you can overload their transmission array, it won't reverse what's already happened. The transformed humans will remain transformed. Mina clasped the pendant around her neck, feeling its familiar weight against her chest. But now there was something else, a subtle vibration, as if the device barely contained lightning. At least the transformation won't spread beyond Hion, she said. 8 million people is a tragedy. 8 billion would be extinction. A soft alarm chimed from the monitoring station. The technician looked up with wide eyes. They're moving. All of them. Converging on the reservoir. The screens showed streams of the transformed beings walking through Hion streets, their movements synchronized like a vast organic machine. Thousands upon thousands, all heading toward the central transmission point. The final phase, Chen said quietly. Once they reach critical mass around the transmitter, nothing will be able to stop the global broadcast. Mina stood, checking her equipment one final time. The pulse rifle was fully charged, her emergency kit secured to her belt, the modified pendant humming with potential energy. How long do we have? 14 hours, maybe 15. The buildup is accelerating faster than our projections suggested. Then we leave now. Mina turned to address the gathered survivors. I need volunteers. People who can create a distraction while Paula and I reach the transmitter. An older man stepped forward, his face marked with the distinctive scars of a former military officer. Ma'am, with respect, we're civilians. Most of us have never held a weapon. Then don't think of them as weapons, Mina replied. Think of them as tools for buying time. Every second you can delay their convergence gives me a better chance of reaching the target. Chen began distributing equipment, jury-rigged pulse weapons, emergency flares, anything that might serve as a distraction. The sewer system connects to maintenance tunnels throughout the city. You could move unseen until you're directly beneath the reservoir. And then you swim up through 60 feet of contaminated water, past thousands of hostile entities, reach a device you've never seen before, and somehow overload it without getting yourself killed in the process. Chen's smile was grim. Simple. Paula's mental touch brushed against Mina's consciousness, comfort, determination, and an emotion she could only interpret as pride. Whatever happened, they would face it together. The survivors worked through the remaining hours of darkness, preparing for what they all understood might be humanity's final desperate gambit. As dawn approached, painting the underground chamber in shades of red emergency lighting, Mina made her final preparations. There's something else, Chen said, pulling her aside. Professor Wexler left a message for you. He uploaded it to our secure servers before his transformation. The hologram flickered to life, showing Wexler's familiar face marked with exhaustion and something that might have been relief. Mina, if you're seeing this, then the worst has happened and you've arrived to find us changed. Know that we chose this path willingly, believing it was evolution. We were wrong. His image wavered, the recording degraded by haste and desperation. The pendant isn't just a control device, it's a key. The aliens who created it weren't invaders. They were refugees, fleeing something worse. The transformation, the collective consciousness, it's a survival mechanism. A way to become something that can't be hunted. The recording paused, Wexler looking directly at the camera with haunted eyes. But humanity has another choice. The guardians, the dragons, they represent a different path. Individual consciousness maintained through symbiosis rather than absorption. If you can reach the core transmitter, if you can activate the pendant's true function, you won't just stop the signal. You'll awaken every guardian that's been dormant since the first artifacts were buried. The hologram flickered and died, leaving Mina staring at empty air. Other guardians, she whispered. Chen nodded. The geological surveys found dozens of artifact sites worldwide. Each one contains remains that match Paula's biological markers. They've been waiting, Mina. Waiting for someone like you to wake them up. Through her bond with Paula, Mina felt something stir, not in the dragon beside her, but in places far distant. Ancient minds touching the edge of consciousness, responding to the pendant's modified frequency. The choice was no longer between transformation and extinction. It was between two different forms of evolution, the collective consciousness of the aliens, or the symbiotic partnership of human and guardian. Time to go, she said simply. The maintenance tunnels were exactly as Chen had described, narrow, flooded, and leading directly beneath the reservoir. Mina and her volunteers moved through the darkness, their lights casting dancing shadows on the corroded walls. Above them, through cracks in the ceiling, they could hear the sound of thousands of feet moving in perfect synchronization. When they reached the access point directly beneath the transmission array, Mina paused for one final check. The pendant was active, its glow visible even through her jacket. Paula pressed his massive head against her shoulder, a gesture of comfort and farewell. If I don't make it back, she told the volunteers, get word to the other survivor colonies. Tell them about the Guardians. Tell them there's another way. Then she dove into the contaminated water, Paula beside her, swimming upward toward whatever waited above. The Guardians' awakening. The water was thick as syrup, filled with microscopic organisms that glowed with their own alien light. Mina pushed upward through the contaminated reservoir, her enhanced lungs straining against the toxic environment while Paula's powerful limbs propelled them both toward the surface. They emerged into chaos. The reservoir had been transformed into a living cathedral. Thousands of the changed humans stood in concentric circles around a massive organic structure that pulsed with bioluminescent veins. The transmitter, if it could still be called that, had grown from the lake bed like some impossible coral formation, its surface covered in the same symbols that decorated Mina's pendant. Mina Nakamura, a familiar voice called across the water. Educator Thren stood at the structure's base, its form more translucent than before, as if the approaching climax was requiring all its energy. You have come to witness the birth of the new collective. How fitting that the last guardian bond should be present for humanity's transcendence. I've come to stop it, Mina replied, treading water while Paula circled beneath her. The dragon's massive form was hidden by the murky liquid, but she could feel his readiness through their bond. Stop it? Thren's laugh was like wind chimes in a hurricane. Child, you cannot stop evolution itself. Your species has been moving toward this moment for 3 centuries. The genetic modifications, the artifacts, even your dragon, all preparation for this day. Then why am I different? Why wasn't I changed like the others? Because every collective needs its guardians. Those who stand apart, who maintain individual consciousness while serving the greater good. You were meant to be our shepherds, guiding the unchanged remnants toward eventual integration. Mina felt the pendant's vibration intensify. Around the reservoir, she could see the transformed humans beginning to raise their arms in unison, their voices joining in a harmonic frequency that made her bones ache. But there's another way, she said, swimming closer to the transmitter. Professor Wexler told me. The Guardians represent a different path, symbiosis instead of absorption. Wexler was a fool, Thren replied, but for the first time, its voice carried uncertainty. The Guardian Protocol was abandoned eons ago. It failed to protect its creators from the hunters that drove them to extinction. Maybe it failed because they didn't have the right partners. Mina's hand closed around the pendant. Maybe they needed something that could choose to fight back. The harmonic frequency reached a crescendo, and energy began flowing from the transformed humans into the transmitter. The organic structure glowed brighter, its surface patterns shifting and realigning. Somewhere beneath the water, Mina felt Paula tense for action. Now, she shouted. Paula erupted from the reservoir like a living missile, his massive form shedding water as he launched himself at the transmitter. The transformed humans scattered, their perfect synchronization broken by the dragon's unexpected assault. But even as Paula's claws raked across the structure's surface, it began to repair itself, the organic material flowing back together like liquid stone. Mina swam hard for the transmitter's base, the pendant now burning against her chest with barely contained energy. As she reached the structure, she could see what Wexler had meant. There was an interface point, a section where the alien symbols matched those on her pendant exactly. "You cannot!" Thren screamed, its form solidifying as it moved to intercept her. "The signal must be sent. Our survival depends on it." "So does ours," Mina gasped, pressing the pendant against the interface. The world exploded into light. Energy coursed through Mina's body as the pendant interfaced with the transmitter, but instead of the overload she had expected, she felt connection. Not the overwhelming unity of the collective consciousness, but something else. Individual voices calling across vast distances, ancient minds stirring from eons of sleep. Through her bond with Paula, she sensed them awakening, dozens of guardians around the world, emerging from their long slumber as the artifact sites responded to the pendant signal. In the Australian outback, a crystalline entity unfolded metallic wings. In the Siberian wastes, something that had slept beneath glacial ice for millennia opened eyes like burning stars. In the Amazon, a guardian older than human civilization stretched limbs that had been wrapped around the roots of ancient trees. But more than the guardians were waking. The signal was reaching unchanged humans across the globe, survivors in hidden colonies, resistance fighters in underground bunkers, even isolated individuals who had never known about the transformation crisis. The pendant wasn't just awakening guardians, it was creating bonds. "No," Thren whispered, its form beginning to flicker. "This was not the plan. The collective must be preserved." "The collective will be preserved," Mina said, understanding flooding through her as the connection deepened. "But not as you intended. The guardians aren't meant to replace individual consciousness, they're meant to protect it. To create something new from partnership instead of absorption." Around the reservoir, the transformed humans stood motionless, their collective harmony disrupted by the guardian signal. But instead of reverting to their original forms, they began to change again, their blue skin taking on different hues, their elongated features becoming more varied, more individual. "They're remembering who they were," Mina breathed. The pendant's energy reached its peak, and for a moment, Mina felt connected to every guardian bond on Earth. Hundreds of partnerships between human and guardian, each one unique, each one a different exploration of what consciousness could become when two species chose to evolve together. Then the connection stabilized, settling into something manageable. The transmitter's glow faded, its purpose fulfilled in a way its creators had never intended. Instead of broadcasting forced unity, it had awakened voluntary partnership. Paula surfaced beside her, his amber eyes reflecting satisfaction and something deeper, the knowledge that they were no longer alone. Across the world, other partnerships were forming, other bonds taking root. Educator Thren approached through the water, but its movements were different now, less fluid, more hesitant. "I remember," it said slowly. "Dr. Thomas Reeves. I was Dr. Thomas Reeves." The being's form flickered between its alien appearance and something more recognizably human. "The collective, it preserved our knowledge but not our choices. We thought we were evolving, but we were just becoming tools." "You still are what you became," Mina said gently, floating beside the deactivated transmitter. "But now you can choose what that means." Around the reservoir, the scene was transforming. The formerly synchronized beings were moving independently, their voices rising in confused but distinctly individual conversations. Some retained their blue-skinned appearance, others were shifting toward more human forms, and still others were becoming something entirely new, a fusion of both states. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through Mina's communicator. "Mina. The energy readings are off the charts globally. What did you do up there?" "I woke up the neighbors," Mina replied, swimming toward the shore where Paula waited. "How are the survivors?" "Alive. More than alive, we're getting reports from colonies worldwide. Guardian awakenings, new partnerships forming, and the transformation signal has completely stopped." "But Mina," there's something else. The changed humans in the cities, they're not reverting, but they're not staying collective either. They're becoming individuals again. As if to confirm Chen's words, several of the transformed beings approached the water's edge. Their leader, a woman whose skin had settled into a soft lavender hue, spoke with a voice that carried echoes of the collective harmony but was unmistakably her own. "We remember who we were," she said. "And we understand what we became. The question now is what we choose to be going forward." Mina pulled herself from the water, Paula's warm scales providing comfort as she leaned against his side. "That's up to all of us to figure out together." The woman nodded. "The collective showed us unity, but it took away choice. The Guardians offer partnership while preserving individuality. Perhaps there's a way to blend both approaches. To be connected without being controlled. A network instead of a hive mind." Thomas, she could think of him as Thomas now, suggested, his form stabilizing into something that was neither fully human nor fully alien. Voluntary connection, maintained consciousness, shared knowledge when needed but individual thought preserved. Over the following hours, as the immediate crisis passed, the scope of the change became clear. The Guardian awakenings had created a new dynamic on Earth. Humans who bonded with Guardians gained enhanced abilities and longevity. The transformed retained their evolved capabilities but regained their individual identities. And scattered across the globe, new partnerships were forming between human survivors and newly awakened Guardians of every imaginable type. But perhaps most importantly, the three groups, unchanged humans, transformed humans, and Guardian-bonded humans, were choosing to work together rather than seeing each other as threats. Dr. Chen emerged from the underground shelter as dawn broke over Hion, her face showing exhaustion but also hope. "The global communication networks are coming back online. We're getting contact requests from survivor colonies on every continent. And Mina, some of the Guardian bonds are reporting that their partners aren't human at all. There are transformed beings bonding with Guardians too." Mina smiled, feeling Paula's contentment through their connection. Evolution doesn't follow a single path. Maybe that's what the original aliens never understood. Survival isn't about becoming one thing. It's about becoming adaptable enough to be many things. Thomas approached, his appearance now settled into a form that honored both his human origins and his transformed state. The collective still exists, but as a choice rather than a compulsion. Some of us prefer the deeper unity it offers. Others want the independence of individual thought. And some, like myself, find value in moving between both states as circumstances require. "And the Guardians?" Mina asked. "They offer a third path, partnership that enhances rather than subsumes. Each approach has its place." Thomas looked up at the sky, where other dragons could now be seen in the distance, their riders beginning the long process of connecting isolated human settlements. "We spent so long fearing change that we forgot change could be chosen rather than imposed." As the sun climbed higher, Mina found herself standing at the edge of the reservoir, watching the three populations of Earth's new paradigm working together to restore basic services to Hion. The city would never be what it was, but perhaps it could become something better. "Are you ready for what comes next?" she asked Paula, running her hand along his scaled neck. The dragon's response came not in words but in emotion, anticipation, determination, and an unshakable confidence in their bond. Together, they had helped prevent the extinction of individual consciousness. Now they would help build whatever came after. The pendant around Mina's neck had gone quiet, its energy spent, but she could still feel the network of connections it had awakened. Hundreds of guardian bonds across the world, each one a unique partnership, each one a different answer to the question of what it meant to be human in an age of unlimited possibility. She mounted Paula's back, feeling the familiar comfort of their shared consciousness, and looked toward the horizon where other dragons were gathering with their riders. There would be settlements to reconnect, survivor colonies to contact, and 3 different branches of human evolution to help navigate their new shared world. "Time to get to work," she said, and felt Paula's agreement resonate through their bond as they took to the sky. Below them, the city of Hion began its transformation once again, not into uniformity, but into diversity. Not through force, but through choice. And in that choice, humanity had found not just survival, but a new form of hope. The end.